Hello and welcome to this weather update. It's a little after 8 o'clock on September 11th, 2017. Yes, of course, I will not forget about this date in history. Of course, we never should, but we have a lot of weather things going on that we have to talk about. First and foremost, this is a MODIS satellite view, so I'll explain to you what's going on here in this picture. Um, we have what's left of Irma now. It's just a tropical storm. But it still brings some rain and wind. Now, fortunately, the track of it spared the east coast of Florida the worst. The west coast got hit pretty hard, but it was mainly Category 3 and Category 3 or less damage, which is bad, but the only area that really saw the Category 4 type damage would be the Keys, which unfortunately were hammered. We have, I think it's 7 million without power in Florida right now. So most people in Florida, I would say 75% are out of power right now after this. So there's been a lot of power outages. There's been flooding in certain areas such as Miami, Tampa Bay, Naples, even as far north as Tallahassee from the storm surge and the rain that the storm brought. And then here, and much smaller, is Hurricane Jose. And we're going to get to the specifics on these storms in a minute, but I want to also show you the smoke. The smoke has been absolutely terrible today. If you've been having trouble breathing, you're not alone. You can't really smell it, but the air is just thick with haze over our area today, and you can see this is something that people aren't going to be talking about. But as you can see, we have just a ton of smoke over our area here. Let's see if we can just make this a little clearer for you. You can see this is all smoke. That's all smoke. Yeah, it's all smoke. It was really thick today, really thick. The sky was there's hardly any blue in it at all, and really thick. The smoke is something we've been dealing with. We dealt with it yesterday too, and this is all from the fires that were burning in Canada. I'm tired of this smoke, and I'm sure everybody is. Obviously, it's a small thing to complain about compared to the devastation from these hurricanes, but you can see the smoke travel all the way from California and Canada. I think it's mostly from California, and just got trapped in the air here, and you can see it's just all over the place, all this smoke. You can see just how thick it was. Let's go to yesterday, because it was around yesterday too. You can see it around yesterday in some of these images here as well. You can see the smoke. So yeah, the smoke has been an ongoing issue here in our area. The only really decent day we had as far as the sky was Saturday. Saturday we had a clear sky. We actually had a blue sky, but in these days of climate crisis, nice skies are hard to come by now. So let's go ahead and look at some of the information on what's going on with our two tropical systems. Before we do, though, let's just look at the smoke. Here's some pictures of it. This was actually taken Saturday morning, and it was in the higher levels of the atmosphere on Saturday, so it wasn't really creating too much haze, but it was making, when the sun came up, it was making for these really pinkish colors in the sky. And then on Sunday, it was really getting really hazy, and you could see there's just a lot of silvery haze in the sky from the smoke that was in the air. You can see here another picture of it here, so you can see exactly what it was doing. Yeah, it wasn't pleasant. And this is the sunset. Very red sunset. That's from all that smoke, and that was yesterday, so we had more of the haze. All right, now we'll get over to the tropical statistics, the latest on the storms. But I just wanted to talk about the smoke too, because it's been being forgotten, and I think it's a pretty major thing going on with all this smoke. All right, let's get to the storminess now. So let's take a look at the National Hurricane Center. Irma has now weakened to a tropical storm. The wind's basically not an issue. It's 45 miles an hour, but the rain sure is. Minimum central pressure 986 millibars, and it's moving north-northwest at 16 miles an hour. And the track basically took it when it came in. It basically came in right around Big Pine Key in that area, just to the actually between Big Pine Key and Key Largo, and the east side, of course, getting the worst. So Big Pine Key really that got hammered over there, hammered. Very bad destruction over there. It's good that area will be uninhabitable for quite some time. However, when it came in and around Naples instead of Tampa. It came in around Naples, so it tracked, and the Tampa did not get the worst part of the storm. The worst part of the storm after on the second landfall was more like around, you know, Naples and further north, even toward Orlando. And the East Coast, Miami, I mean, they still got hit hard. They still got a storm surge. They still got a lot of power outages, but it was not the catastrophic damage that was being predicted because the track went further west. And that spared the East Coast of Florida the worst of it. And then Jacksonville. So there's still a lot of storm surge because of the winds. The winds literally pushing the water in. And that's what's causing the flooding in Tampa Bay, too, is the winds coming from this direction are just pushing the water in. And that's why you still have flooding issues. And when the storm was approaching, actually, it was over here, it was pulling all the water out, and the water was actually receding in all the bays, and it came back when the wind swung around. And the storm is just a huge, huge storm compared to Jose, which is tiny. But let's look at Jose now. We're going to go right to the forecast on Jose. Jose is, let's see what it says it as. The categories that have it at. It's a category 2, I believe, right? Alright, maximum sustained winds 100 miles an hour. Yeah. North at 12 miles an hour, its movement, and the track, it has it just meandering. Jose is, well, I hate to use the pun, it's going to be loitering around for a little bit in the Atlantic. And it could be just looping around, and then it's going to start moving toward the East Coast. And this is why we have to be careful. Because we're going to start looking at some of the forecasts now for this. And it is something that we really need to watch. It's a much smaller storm than Irma, for sure. It's much smaller in area, and it's not nearly as strong. But it is, in fact, let's take a look at this, some of the satellite imagery here. All right, this is a close-up of Jose. You can see it's not the best-looking storm. It's small. You can see it's getting some shear. Definitely does not look like in the perfect condition that Irma was looking in. But however, it's not really going to be moving around much. It's going to be sitting over there. So it's going to have access to the warm water, and it may eventually strengthen back up again. So now it's time to look at the computer models. We'll start with the GFS here, which shows pretty much, you see it has Irma over here, and then much, much smaller Jose over there. Irma is a big girl next to Jose. Jose is a tiny guy. But anyway, you can see it's just going to have Jose meander out here. We had the high pressure, the dry high pressure, but now it's going to start moving offshore, and we're going to start getting into a return flow, and we may be dealing with a little stalled front syndrome toward the weekend, and that is a concern because guess who's here? Jose is here in the Atlantic, and so it's going to be there, and it's going to probably be loitering around and then strengthening. And then look at this; it makes a move toward the East Coast. Now it looks like it tries to build in a high pressure here, but it looks like there's a front that's stalled out over here, and we know what it is. We have an Atlantic ridge over here, so it's not going to let the storm just go right out to sea. And so you can see the Atlantic ridge over here. But the question is how strong. It could be very weak, and if it's weak, the GFS has been all over the place lately. It had it taking a direct hit on our area, but the GFS did that with the last storm, and look what happened. However, this guy here looks like he stays out to sea on this run. Jose stays out to sea on this run. All right, and so we have a more progressive pattern that would take Jose out to sea where it belongs. However, let's just go back a run here, because if we go back to the 12Z run, you'll see what it does with Jose. It has a much stronger Atlantic ridge, and it has a much stronger flow, and it literally doesn't let it go out to sea, and it just slams our area on a track very similar to Hurricane Sandy, which would be devastating for us. Obviously, it's not a hugely intense hurricane, but It would be on a hurricane on the strength of probably Hurricane Sandy. This would be a bad outcome. All right, so that is the GFS. Let's take a look at the Canadian. Let's see what the Canadian does with this. And by the way, the remnants, I don't think we're going to see much from Irma as far as rain goes. I don't think we're going to see much of anything from that. But you can see it has Jose just meandering out. But it keeps Jose. Does it keep it out to sea? Because it just has it stalled out east of us, and then eventually takes it away. I'm thinking that's what's going to happen, and hopefully that's what's supposed to happen. So hopefully that is what will happen. Let's go ahead and look at the European model. Let's see what the European model does. You can see here as we take it into the future. This week you can see it's got this just crappy weather setting up because you got the ridge here and we don't have any dry air and we got a unsettled, trophy, stalled front pattern that's going to keep us in the clouds and humidity. And let's see what it's doing with Jose here. It looks like it takes him close, but it still takes him out to sea. So hopefully that's what the solution will be, an out to sea solution. Hopefully, we don't want to have another hurricane hitting the United States. We've had 2 very bad hurricanes hitting the United States in the past couple of weeks, and we don't need a third. So let's pray for the folks in Florida. That'll be it for this weather update. And I'll keep my eye on Hurricane Jose. Take it easy.